You're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
If you or your patients struggle with muscle cramps, spasms, soreness, or restless leg syndrome, you're going to want to hear about our non-opioid TheraWorks Relief. TheraWorks Relief is a clinically proven and published locally acting topical solution that prevents and relieves muscle cramps, spasms, and soreness in the legs and feet. In a research study including patients diagnosed with restless leg syndrome, TheraWorks Relief was shown to reduce symptoms commonly associated with accompanying RLS, including muscle cramps and spasms. Muscle cramps are reported as a side effect of hundreds of prescription medications, from intravenous iron sucrose and conjugated estrogens to statins and diuretics. By managing muscle cramps, TheraWorks Relief supports adherence, helping patients stay on important and often life-saving medications. TheraWorks Relief comes in an easy-to-use, fast-absorbing, non-greasy foam that can prevent muscle cramps and spasms with just a few simple applications a day. To learn more about TheraWorks Relief, go to theraworksrelief.com and click on the Healthcare Professional link.
Hi, this is Ryan Smith from RockRx Pharmacies, and you're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Pharmacy Podcast Nation, this is the founder and host of today's podcast, Todd Urey with the Pharmacy Podcast Network. There are subjects that are confusing to many in the space of pharmacy business. One of those is insurance. One is investing, being able to take over other pharmacies. How to actually migrate into the business. Let's pretend you've been working at a chain for 2 years, 4 years. You want to open up your own pharmacy. There's opportunities out there. Something else that really gets me in the aspect of not really understanding is the world of 340B. I am so excited today because I'm bringing aboard someone who understands this facet of the business of pharmacy from the inside out. This guy, Ryan Smith, and I actually teamed up years ago to form a buying group to actually try to help mitigate the risk of lack of business development in pharmacy. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But I want to introduce to the Pharmacy Podcast Network, Ryan Smith with RockRx Pharmacy. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast, my friend.
It is a pleasure and an honor, and it's always good to talk with you, old friend.
Haha. It's so funny. We started out in completely two different sectors of pharmacy. I was in technology. You were in the world of wholesale, chugging along, doing what young bucks do. But what's interesting is when you and I got together, the very first time we met and we started talking, we were talking about the next level of pharmacy business, the next level of the advantage of an independent pharmacy. And what's funny is over the years, and the progression of your own entrepreneurial spirit and everything that you've done in your own career, 340B has always been a continued mystery to me of how to be able to leverage that as an owner of a pharmacy, as an owner of a community independent pharmacy. So the very first thing, just give our listeners a little background on yourself, Ryan, as well as what RockRx management team and RockRx pharmacies are doing. And then I have a bunch of questions for you.
Sure. And again, I appreciate the platform and talking to you and kind of tracing how the podcast from, I think it's infancy when we were working together, a decade ago to now has kind of taken over. So congrats as always.
But here we are. I mean, the number one podcast in the entire global footprint of what is pharmacy, and it's exciting. So it's nice to be able to cross paths again.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Ryan Smith, and I started off my career, actually started setting shelves from a drug wholesaler, walking into independent pharmacies and, kind of seeing the struggles from that end and moving to sales. So I spent a decade, a little less, with drug wholesalers, originally F. Doman, who sold the Cardinal in 2006, and then ran national sales for a time at H.D. Smith, who had sold to AmerisourceBergen recently. And after that, and kind of at the end of that term, got into just learning from a lot of the big independent 340B pharmacies across the country. Ironically enough, 3 of those were and still are in one form or fashion in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania today, which is where we met. Yeah. And got to understand 340B from the standpoint of pharmacies doing it very successfully. And at that point, being maybe 400, 500 covered entities across the country, and now flashing forward and owning pharmacies in that space, that specialty chronic care patient 340B space for the past 8 years. And now we're in a climate where the 340B covered entities, granted a big health system may have 40, 50 different, clinics or affiliations, is over 70,000. So it's kind of been a very interesting and amazing learning experience for me over this 12, 13 year period from wholesale and dealing with pharmacies and covered entities, health systems, hospitals, HIV organizations, and then into pharmacy ownership and understanding those different business models and how that is presented to the independent pharmacy, in different varying ways. But that's, kind of a brief snapshot of my career in pharmacy and specific to that 340B organization.
So let's pretend I'm an independent pharmacy owner. I've been in business, say 10 years. I have 3 stores. I've heard about 340B. I don't quite get it. Why do I need to be involved in 340B contracting? Like what is it about that facet of the business of pharmacy that I should be paying attention to?
The core answer to that, and then I'll expand, the core answer to that is these are patients that you're technically, or not technically, these are patients you may be filling for already today. The term 340B, came about just because that's the paragraph of the legislation from the Health and Human Resources Act in the mid-90s. That's all it was at its essence. A paragraph that explains how indigent patients or patients who needed access to medication would be able to do that in a cost-effective way. That was the essence of 340B. Now, in the mid-90s, there was not a chain drugstore and 3 competitors of that on every street corner. There were not, these massive PBMs with their own mail order and they're the payers and everything that there is today. So a very different world. But at the core of 340B, it is about patient service and flexibility for that patient. That's not, if you and I have a blood pressure or cholesterol and we need to go in and get a pill, we can go in and not have to talk to anyone and pick it up from a chain. No disrespect to chains. There's thousands and tens of thousands of them. We could get it shipped to us in the mail and it's fine. That's all the interaction. We just need the medication. If you have mental health issues, behavioral health issues, HIV, hepatitis C, newly diagnosed, and you're dealing with other issues that you need to talk with someone, that's what the independent pharmacy in my mind has always been, the servicing piece of pharmacy. Now, it's not always financially beneficial. I own pharmacies. We fill plenty of prescriptions that you lose money on every single time you fill them. But 340B gives an area where it is a contract pharmacy relationship, meaning that both the flow of data and the flow of financials are mutually exclusive. And in a pharmacy aspect, you just fill for a fee for service. That is it. It's not your patient. It's the patient of that health center or hospital or Ryan White organization or rural hospital setting that you're dealing with. You're filling the patient for either a dollar fee to fill the script that's negotiated or a fee for service on that prescription. It is their revenue. It's their product that is a bill to ship to. It's their relationship with the wholesaler shipped to the pharmacy. And so, from that standpoint, from a pharmacy end, it's great in a couple ways. Is it going to triple the income of your pharmacy? No. But what it's going to do is allow you to know that for a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year period of that contract, you're going to be able to fill a prescription for a set fee. And you're going to know exactly what that is, which isn't what you have today dealing with the PBMs anywhere.
Right.
And then you're also going to have the flow of data, meaning the health center now knows who got a prescription filled. If there was a prior authorization, how was it handled? Was it handled? Where today, if someone leaves a health center and comes to a pharmacy just as a normal, patient with whatever that payer may be, then we fill a prescription at the pharmacy. It's e-scripted to us or the patient brings us. Unless there's an issue with that prescription, the patient didn't bring it in, the independent pharmacy most of the time calls back to say, hey, we were supposed to get this, or they didn't know in a physical script, an e-script, just someone didn't come to pick up the script. That health system has no clue. So how do they find out the patient didn't fill a medication? They get readmitted to a hospital. Hospitals, if you get readmitted within 30 days, they're not reimbursed. The patient now hasn't taken medication in that time frame. So now it's a bigger drain on the health system as a whole. So that's a very, very long-winded way of saying that independent pharmacies, being a service-based industry and business model, they are built for 340B, because 340B is not anything other than every type of patient that there is out there. Chronic, just normal maintenance meds, everything across the board, but they just need a specific need for based on their diagnosis. And that may just be because they live in a certain area and don't have access to transportation. That may be that they work different hours and don't have access if a specific FedEx is coming between 10 and 2, or that may be that they need to physically walk in a pharmacy. But, our model is kind of based on that, knowing there isn't a single solution for any patient. And if we can work with independent pharmacies, and we are ourselves, then we can construct based on the need of the patient rather than just, hey, this is our business model, we're on every street corner.
So basically, Ryan, from what I'm hearing from you is, I'm an independent pharmacy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Why am I not taking advantage of being able to care for patients who can be serviced through a 340B program, which requires those drug manufacturers to sell to outpatient drugs as discounted prices for covered healthcare providers, entities, maybe certain hospitals, such as like a children's hospital or some other like clinic of some sort with low income as kind of a component of this. Why am I missing out in OTC? Why am I missing out in servicing them for other chronic disease states? Why am I missing out in all of this other business that could be brought through that specific patient, which could trickle into a family of patients? And why am I missing out on that? And I guess the next question is, being able to manage this with an inventory specific sect of information. So I know you already have that kind of figured out. So share with our listeners how they manage their inventories, 340B versus their standard other community pharmacy inventories.
Well, so on an inventory specifically, what you see are a couple different business models. And depending, and I'll get into the 3 specific business models a little bit later, but depending how you get into 340B, is it you having a direct contract or being through a third party or something like that, kind of varies. But I always come to the belief that a physical inventory, meaning that product, it's a build to ship to, so product purchased from that health system or that hospital that you're contracted with or Ryan White organization. They purchase product. You need to run a realistic streamlined inventory like independent pharmacies do, but you have a physical inventory on hand for that patient base. The other model is a replenishment model, they call it. You'll see it with a lot of the third-party administrators. And Nothing, wrong with it at all. But what happens is the independent pharmacy loses every time. And the reason for that is the model is based on the inventory you have today. So if you have Todd's Pharmacy and you're in a strip mall in Washington, Pennsylvania, south of Pittsburgh, and you service normally blood pressure, cholesterol, you have some diabetes patients, you may have had a Hep C patient, once a year or something like that. But you see, kind of those standard disease states within pharmacy. The fact that you may have three $30,000 per month per patient Harvoni Hep C medications is zero. And if you now have a relationship with, and I'm just going to make up a name, Pittsburgh Health Center, University of Pittsburgh, and now they have a relationship with you, you get two patients in, they're saying you utilize those two $30,000 medications that are already on your 17-day bill to pay your wholesaler. And if you dispense those to the patient, we're going to replenish that with a 340B product. Nothing wrong with that besides your cash flow. So, there's and this is purely a biased standpoint on it, but, a physical inventory where that inventory is set aside and that's purchased specifically for that organization can clearly show in an audit, and 340B is and should be heavily, heavily audited. You can show that this was purchased under Pittsburgh Health Center, Todd Urey's Pittsburgh clinic, and that bottle was dispensed to Ryan Smith on this date. So from a transparency and from an audit standpoint, you can clearly show at every cycle of the business, this was purchased by this organization, shipped to us, they paid the bill, we dispensed that specific bottle to this specific patient, and that is the total flow of transparency. What you see also in the bigger chain models are a chain model may have 25 contracts within a state. They may have 10 contracts within a city. So a lot of times there's a purchase. Yes, it's invoiced from this account to this wholesaler, but then those medications are put in a big central fill type model. Well, to show that that bottle was purchased for this account and dispensed to this patient who has a medical record at that facility, you can do it through data, but the transparency and the likelihood that that pill was actually in that specific bottle, not that it was a different medication or anything like that, but that pill specifically purchased on that account went to that patient, I would say at some point that comes under a little bit more scrutiny. But those are the different models that you have within 340B, inventory and purchasing.
So if you're listening, you're a pharmacy owner, you're a director, you're trying to grow your business, today's podcast is not solely about 340B pharmacy. It happens to be a component of the design of what Rock RX Pharmacy is doing. And the reason why I was excited to bring Ryan on, you guys believe in layering a pharmacy's business so that 340B, so you can take advantage of the net and the community service that is 340B contracting. However, it doesn't stop there. That's just the beginning, or that should be a facet or a piece of what you're delivering to your community pharmacy. There are other facets and business pieces to Rock RX Pharmacy that I want you guys to really understand. There's going to be some show notes, rockrx.org. That's the website, rockrx.org. Easy to remember. Brian, tell the listeners a little bit about how that's a place setter, and there's other business development strategies that you guys have put into place that's made you extremely successful in a short amount of time. And why I'm so excited about it is it's some of the philosophies that you and I used to talk about way back in the days of our own buying group. So talk to the listeners about that.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. The essence of Rock RX Pharmacies is that pharmacies only prosper by evolving with the times, understanding what is and potentially will happen with not only the client and customer base that we're dealing with, the patients. It's dealing with what is happening with the PBMs, what is happening on the payer end, what is happening on the supplier end. And the core that we've always, and Todd and I, ironically enough, kind of had a RockRX Part 1, a million years ago. But it's that if pharmacies don't continue to grow and evolve their business model, who they're targeting towards, how they're doing it, then we're going to continue to see the consolidation and the chains and the mail orders and everybody taking away more business and making it a market where if you're just filling a blood pressure and cholesterol type patient base, you're not going to be around. Or if you are, you're the pharmacist and not paying yourself. And you're still providing a great service, but that's no way that's going to last. So RockRX is kind of based in the philosophy of partnering with pharmacy owners that are at a point in their growth where it is either consistent and they want more, or it's stunted and they've seen even staying at the same volume, and now they've seen a decrease, as we all do, in that profit margin and what you're filling. And now, you're happy if you get $1.50 dispensing fee on a medication, and with DIR fees, what they are now, which is just another fee. It's just something else that's going to cause our detriment. So the RockRX model is that owner in any state that is at the point where they say, I've got a great business today, but I'd like to grow. Or, you know what, I would like to make more of what my business is today, but I'm that pharmacist, I'm that owner, my time is taken. What we do is come in and partner with you, and not a franchise model where you pay us a fee and we give you a fancy sign, but we take your pharmacy as it is today, all of your business as it is today, all of your profit as it is today. That's your business. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is you, even if you're not maximizing on revenue because of any variable out there, most of them kind of stacked against us, we will come in and grow the business, help to consolidate the systems and the IT, and grow this together. And the benefit is your business today is your business today. Our business we bring is business you benefit from as well. So it's a little bit different in the sense of production-based, nothing to do with, changing identities. I've always been a fan of the sense of if you're an independent pharmacy, you should never give away your identity. What you are is what you needed to be and what you wanted to be. What the business is and the future and the growth of that, everyone just needs a little bit added piece. But doing it from a partnership standpoint and doing it from a standpoint of not a buying group, which Todd mentioned earlier, we've had on our ends, and nothing wrong with them. They're negotiating a price with a wholesaler. But we're looking at it as your price. You can save an extra 1% on your cost of goods, or 1.5% in your next deal next year, or get from a 30% to a 50% rebate where they mark things up. But that means nothing if your volume went from 150,000 to 125 and your EBITDA went from 12 to 8. You're not going to benefit. And that's what we're about. What we're about is not working with everyone. It's never going to be a network that I foresee to have 4,000, 3,000, all these crazy numbers. But we can build a network and are building in networks of the top pharmacy owners in the country. And maybe that's 5 in a certain state. Maybe that's 2 in a certain state. But working with those independent pharmacy owners who just want to see something else. And maybe that's to build it up for next generation. Maybe that is to be able to get back to anywhere a sense of a profit margin. And it can only be done based on growth and smart growth that you had 10 years ago. So that's the core of RockRX. And yes, we have purchasing programs, and yes, we have, all of those things tied in, but our core is based on growth and working with those owners that are looking for strategic growth in very smart places in disease states within pharmacy.
That's just it, though, Ryan. I can't help but get excited about the business of pharmacy because, I've been tracking this since 2004 and it was tired. I mean, it got to the point where it was so repetitive. I was just like, this transactional environment, this non-entrepreneurial environment, that's not the lifeblood of the next generation of pharmacy owners. And then all of a sudden I started running into, through the NCPA or the American Society of Consultant Pharmacists or the NASP, focused on specialty pharmacy, started running into these people that were passionate about reinventing services provided to patients and how they were doing it and growing their business. And when I knew you launched this business, I knew all of the experiences that you've kind of had with regards to the business of pharmacy and kind of putting it together. So what I want the listeners to know, number one, there's no, even though Ryan and I were partners in the day, I don't have any ownership. I don't have any connection to RockRx other than the fact that I knew Ryan had launched this entity. He's doing well with it. You're growing it. You're gathering customers, people that want something different, something to change because you have to change. And what was so exciting to me when I saw that you launched the website, looks good, rockrx.org, was that you still have that passion in you, Ryan. You still know that there are pharmacy owners out there that want to differentiate themselves in their community. And the fact that you understand this inside and out as a consultant to these business owners, this doesn't mean that you have to give up what you have or change your model completely. This means that Ryan starts talking to you about enhancing something that's already preserved and very valuable in your community. You're the face of pharmacy in your community. Ryan, in the concepts of what is rockrx.org, is saying, hey, let's take a step back and see if there's something that you're leaving on the table that can solidify your stability in giving you a track up, because you're dealing with DIR fees, you're dealing with PBMs, contracting. They've hired so many lawyers right now because they know that things are going to change. PBM reform is coming. Why wait? I mean, why wait around for this? Why not take control of your destiny? Get aggressive. Start talking to people that understand the business. Start talking to people that have been around the business. I'm not a pharmacist. Ryan's not a pharmacist, but guess what? We've been soaking in the business of pharmacy for years, 15 years, 30 years collectively. And I'm thinking, that's why, Ryan, I was excited to have you on, because I wanted to dig into your brain and really understand, what opportunities there are for independent pharmacy. I mean, and this is only part one of a 3-part series. So I can't wait to hear from your other service providers, your other partners. Tell us a little bit about what else you're going to be talking about on the series, on the RockRx Pharmacy series.
Yeah, so on the series, I think, the key is to focus on what the essence of it is. I've talked on the pharmacy end and talked on the 340B, the auditing piece of 340B, and getting a little bit more into the specifics of, okay, I understand this, maybe this could be something, or I don't understand this, but kind of getting into the depths of what is needed. And from an audit standpoint, which is very important, what reporting's needed, how does it make real time, what databases, and how does that process work? And that's extremely, extremely important. The other is kind of looking at it from the patient standpoint. And yes, we can say, hey, utilize us, independent pharmacy, instead of the chain or instead of the mail order. But what services are we doing, which in a service based, and I still cross my fingers every day that essentially we're going to get to a care-based pharmacy reimbursement at some point. We're the furthest thing from it today, but at some point, providing a service and managing people's medication rather than just putting pills in their hands has to be the way, I think, that will be reimbursed. But, that care standpoint and getting away from, what do we do? And if you look at just the growth, kind of to just expand on it a little bit, and we'll get more into it. But if you just look at the growth of pharmacies, and where specialty now is 24% of the overall, probably is going to be more as we get going. What is the consistency? It's driven away from the hands of independent pharmacy. Why? Because of accreditation, because of not having a national license. And I have a national pharmacy, and I can tell you to get 50 states licensed is not an easy thing to do for an independent pharmacy at all. And so who can actually do that?
You guys are at 48 now, right?
We're at 40. Yeah, we're at 48 now. But if you even look at that to see, my partner and co-owner in Confidential Drug, to see him going to 15 different states to physically take a test, sometimes just to pick up a piece of paper because he passed a test to get a license. Is that easier for the independent guy who is also running the bench or a chain drugstore? I would say maybe a little bit easier for the chain, but granted, we all have these hoops and hurdles, but
right.
Our goal overall is to kind of explain how you can succeed, and that now is the best time of any to not change your business model one bit, but to let us adapt it and just add those extra verticals that a lot of times independent owners don't know they're built for, but they are built perfect in a service model. The problem is now I've got to fill 600 a day because that's what the chain next door, and that's the only thing I can do. Well, that's not the case at all. It's getting that specific patient that needs your level of care, and that's what independent pharmacy is. So we'll expand upon 340B and audits. We'll expand upon business development and care, and tie in kind of doctors and examples of how our model can diversify you.
Yeah, and I want the listeners to know this series is going to include an interview with a physician who is partnered with RockRx Pharmacy, and his experience, as well as the effect of the experience and the services provided by the pharmacies that are involved back to the patient. So I think that is going to be phenomenal. So I'm excited about that, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I think it's great for, healthcare in general, just to kind of see that a full cycle business model actually can have real effects on that patient, and how the treatment and how the flexibility and adherence can be done. So I'm excited just to kind of get that out, because I think more than anything is, expanding independent pharmacy, keeping independent pharmacy around, but not only keeping around, but prospering. Absolutely. That's what I've done and been involved with my whole life. But looking at it from the patient standpoint, and how by adding things that a specialty pharmacy may have without being a specialty pharmacy and paying $100,000 to go through that, how that can get you on a patient basis, how you can be able to manage what they truly need and add a different offering, rather than just, again, getting back to, we just have to put as many pills in a bottle as possible because we're not making any money on what we're filling. It's the only way to survive.
So if you're listening right now, you own a pharmacy, you're operating a pharmacy, at least have a conversation with these guys, rockrx.org, understanding that it's a mixture of strategies, because you have to be creative in today's landscape of independent pharmacy, community pharmacy. It's so competitive. You have the PBMs biting at your revenue. Why not do something creative, do something multifaceted? Ryan, I love this stuff. I'm excited that we reconnected. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This is the first part of a 3-part series regarding rockrx.org, RockRx Pharmacies. Excited to have you here. Thank you for participating.
Thank you very much. And at the end of the day, to have flexibility and to figure out if there's options to grow, to not do so is only to the detriment of yourself.
Rock RX Pharmacies. You can find them at rockrx.org, talking with Ryan Smith, founder of this concept, an old pal of mine back in the days. I can't believe we're saying that, Ryan, because we're getting old, but what the hell? I guess that's going to happen to everybody.
That is true. And those were the days before kids and everything else. So that couldn't be said better.
You were listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network. We were talking with Ryan Smith, who helped to found, co-founder of rockrx.org, RockRx Pharmacies, series about transforming pharmacy, layering in different facets and business models and strategy of pharmacy. Reach out to them. Let us know what you think. rockrx.org. And we thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.